Me.
It's Halloween.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Reels and Heels. And yeah, we're missing Willow today. She, I believe,
She's at a convention, isn't she?
I think she's going to a wedding.
No.
I thought she said something
Kelly
about
is going to a wedding.
Kelly's going to.
Kelly's at a wedding. She's in a wedding today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Her hair looks amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, welcome to.
I digress. Sorry.
You're gonna laugh out loud. This is episode 69.
Woo!
Nice.
So the topic
Like you should
is.
have worn a more revealing.
I am married to
in honor of that.
Well, you're a
episode,
teacher,
right? No.
Well, she's a teacher. She works with middle school students all week. So.
And then I come home to that.
A middle schooler, yeah.
Right.
Essentially, yeah.
So today's topic is convention and the community. The family that we get born into.
Family we get born. No. The family we choose.
The family we choose. That's it. The family we choose.
Family you get born into is the one you can't get rid of.
That's
You
right.
share blood with them.
Yeah. So we're gonna go around the table and everyone's gonna introduce themselves, and we'll start with you, Leonard. How you doing, man?
I am good, thank you. For those who don't know, I'm Leonard Pig. I am a writer for Amos Collaborative, Sexy Beard Club Press. I'm also an actor, comedian. I'm in the Amazon Prime series Canary Currency, and I'm also the announcer for AACW Old School Wrestling. So I stay pretty busy.
Nice.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and we got Heather. How you doing, Heather?
I'm great. How are you guys doing? Talking about weddings, I'm about to go to one, so no excuses. I'm Heather. You'll see me all over the place. I am the Florida Fan Expo Meetups Ambassador for the Orlando area. So I do a lot of work with MegaCon. We do monthly meetups. I'm the founder of a nonprofit called Still Serving. So I created at the beginning of quarantine. If my name or face looks familiar, it's because you've seen me somewhere in the media in the last year and a half. But I'm happy to be here with you fine folks.
Nice. And Timothy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. My name's Timothy Fling. I'm a writer and creator from York, Pennsylvania. Like I was saying to Dre, our local convention is Baltimore. We just got back, so I can't wait to talk about some of this stuff. And I'm promoting my new book also that's coming to Kickstarter in 6 hours, which is the latest issue of a book called Water Wars.
Nice. And we've grown to love Kickstarter over the last year. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff out there.
Thank you. Love it a lot more than I do.
I think I should mention that's actually how I kind of met Brian, right? It was through one of the Kickstarter groups, or
Yes.
That was when we first started talking. So it's nice to finally meet some of the, put a face to the name, as they say. Like a lot of the people, you know how it is, you kind of know them, but we've never seen any of these people.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Kickstarter is going to put us in the poorhouse.
yeah. I know that feeling. This month too, November, there's like basically everybody I know seems like they're all having one. So
Yeah. So from the Phoenix Sisters, we got Krayley. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I am part of a cosplay duo called Phoenix Sisters Cosplay. Kelly, you might have seen on various other podcasts, is the other half that we were just talking about, who's at a wedding today. And I also was just a vendor for the first time at Indiana Comic Con. So now I've got two different angles on the whole convention family, and joining the vendor family is like a little different than the cosplayer community, but not quite. So I'm really excited to do the show today.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about the Pokemon stuff that you do, because that's pretty cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. So Dre, how you doing, brother?
What's going on, everybody? I am Dre the Brute Daniels. I am the owner and founder of Brutal Planet Comics. I am the writer, author, and director of the ongoing comic series Trouble, The Rhythm Within. I also run a YouTube channel of the same name, Brutal Planet Comics, where we talk about everything comics and also do interviews with other indie creators in the indie sphere.
Nice. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
The pleasure is mine.
Yeah. So my first question for the table here is, when was your first convention? And we'll start with you, Heather.
Define convention. No. I've been going since a certain convention was in my hometown in Coral Springs. I think I was about 15. Couldn't even drive myself, and I have been going ever since. But I have since migrated away from that convention and have embraced more of the better conventions within the last several years, either hosting panels or moderating or doing whatever I can to be as involved as possible.
Nice. What about you, Leonard?
My very first convention was actually like a proper one where you got like big guests and things, was Wizard World Chicago, probably 2005.
What a great show.
And yeah, I had a blast. I volunteered there for I did that for about maybe 3 or 4 different years. Got to meet some really cool people. Got to do some casual networking because at the time this is back, like pre-Disney Marvel when they actually had an open submission policy. So I was like always sending stuff off and, trying to get advice from writers and things.
Sure.
Yeah. And Dre, what about you?
So I had to think hard on my first con was. I think my first con was Baltimore Comic Con in 2005. I think that was the first con I think I ever went to. And I I remember I tried to go as oh my god. I went as Matt Murdock.
Nice.
Matt Murdock's pre-Daredevil armor. Murdock, so black scarf. Matt Murdock, and I didn't use the right material, so I couldn't see.
How many walls and trash cans and people did you run into?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
True to
So I
character.
was sitting there, so I had to like have it peeled up the whole time. So everybody kept asking me if I was just a ninja. So it didn't really work out. But it was a lot of fun. It was a heck of an experience. But ever since then, I try to go to at least one con every year since. And I've also been a part of a couple of cons in the past. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go to Baltimore Comic Con this year because I thought it wasn't happening because of COVID.
No.
And then I got word that it was happening, but by that time, booths were already taken up. And I was like, well, I guess me and my wife are leaving town this weekend. I guess we're gonna go and do something. So, but yeah.
Hey, well, you got that time with the wife. There you go.
Yeah. So I took my wife to her first Comic Con in 2018. I took her to her first one. I went as Blade and she went as Chun-Li. It was pretty
Nice.
dope.
Yeah,
So, so I'm indoctrinating her into the lifestyle. She
As you should.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Has to.
Crayley, what about you?
My first convention was in 2013. It was Planet Comic Con. I had 2 friends that I was really close with in college, where I was like, I mean, I like this stuff, but like, isn't it weird? Like, we're adults. And they were like, no, you're going to a convention. It's not weird. It's fun. Like, learn how to have fun. I was the hugest workaholic in college. I had 2-3 jobs at a time, internships. I got 2 bachelors in 4 years. Like, I was not good at having fun anymore. And they were like, you're going, it's spring break. You're going to do something. And I got there and I was like, this isn't weird at all. This is so much fun. Oh my gosh, I'm going to do this all the time now.
Wow. That's the show that's in Kansas, right?
Yeah. It was in Kansas City. Maybe we were on the Missouri side. I don't know. I've literally been there and I still get confused on how Kansas City works. Isn't it like on
Yeah,
both
it's
sides.
separated by the river, yes, but it pretty much is the same city. But they have two different mayors. It's weird. Timothy, what about you?
I guess I first started going back about 2014 or so. In those days, it was a little different. I used to work for a company called CBCS, and they were a new grading company that had just started. And one of the things you would do, you would go to conventions and you would be like the assistant to the artist. Say, for example, if they had Herb Trimpe there or, some of these bigger names, I would help customers get the person's autograph, say if they were getting a book signed, and then you'd take it back and they would slab that book, basically like a verification. And I was kind of an art collector in those days. And what I would do is I would go to each table and get sketches and whatnot. And that's kind of what got me started on page making. And then from page making, before you know it, you fell into the water. You make comics now. So ever since then, I've been making them.
Yeah. Well, for me, I grew up in San Diego. So I grew up with the big boy. But when I was growing up in San Diego, it wasn't as huge as it is now. So like Stan Lee was super approachable, didn't charge like $100 for an autograph, which personally, we all know it's not him. It was the people that were working with him because he would talk and sign everything for free. But yeah, San Diego was my first rodeo. I would go every year. Then of course I moved to Vegas, and Vegas didn't have any Comic Cons. They had a bunch of other conventions. But of course I wasn't old enough, and it wasn't really my thing. I don't think I would go to a porn convention or anything like that. But
I think you would.
Called out.
But airing out that dirty laundry.
Honesty is the best policy.
But there was a convention in Vegas that I would have loved to go to, but it wasn't open to the public, and that's called CES. I'm a big fan.
Yeah,
I love finding out about new TVs and new cool stuff coming out. But that was only open to people that worked in the industry. So I'd have to go online to find out what the cool stuff was. But that was my first experience with conventions. Nice. What about you?
It's your fault.
My fault.
Yeah. And 2007, right?
2007.
2007, you took me to San Diego Comic Con.
Yeah. So we drove from Vegas to San Diego, stayed with friends, and went to San Diego Comic Con. And that was the year that they announced Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, and they unveiled his suit. So they had the actual suit at the Marvel booth, and they took the thing off, and you can see what the armor looked like.
That's cool.
It was also the year I saw Misha Collins eating pizza while I was waiting for their panel.
Yes.
He's pretty. So pretty.
And meanwhile, I'm standing in line, and he's meeting Bruce Campbell on the floor. I'm really annoyed by this. Still to this day.
Yes. Oh, man.
Always in the wrong place, but he's always in the right one.
That's the way the game goes sometimes.
And we're never together when it happens.
Oh no.
Next cosplay has got to be like with handcuffs or something, so you have to be together.
Or y'all can go as the Wonder Twins.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Love it.
So what was the best experience, either as a vendor or as a fan, at a convention for you guys? And this is for anybody who wants to answer.
I can start.
Okay.
Yeah, do it.
That's okay.
Do it.
Okay. I think my best experience was actually as an attendee. I think I'll say it was New York Comic Con 2014. One of my buddies has never been before. We took a bus up there because our show wasn't about to find no parking. So we took a bus up there, and we went there. We had a great time, and I bumped into this guy who was he was an art vendor, really nice guy, really cool, really dope. And he explained this is before I even produced any of my work off the top, and I just all I had in my hand was old notebook where I've been writing my stories down in, and we got to talking, and I said, hey, I said, look, I haven't really talked to anybody since I was here. Can I share this with you? And so I gave him my notebook, and he peeled through it, and he said, Dre, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was like, oh God. I'm like, oh God, here we go. It sucks. And he's like, this is some of the most creative stuff I've laid my eyes on in a long time. And I looked at him, I said, don't play with me, man. Don't play with me. You're like, no, he said, I think you should actually do this. And I'll be as honest as I can. I got a little emotional about it. I ain't cry, but I got pretty, I mean, but it was it really touched my soul because at the time I was just starting off trying to write, and he really gave me the confidence to actually push forward and to actually try to produce my work. And from that day forward, I started taking my comic production seriously, and now I'm producing an ongoing series. And without that encouraging push that he gave me, I would never have been able to do it. And I'm forever thankful for that moment. And it really touched my soul. And that was kind of like what springboarded me to do what I'm doing today.
That's awesome. That's what I love about conventions is the encouragement that you get from whether if you're a cosplayer, oh, I love how the way you sew, you look, really good as this character. You should maybe try this character, or wow, that's some really good art. This is something I've seen a lot of in various conventions, not just Comic Cons, but it truly is like a family.
Absolutely.
Experience.
There's definitely more good than bad.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree. It's something I've always been saying, like all the folks I've been interviewing with on my channel and stuff, I've always referred to the comics community as the farmer's market. I've always referred to it as the farmer's market. You might have oranges, I might have watermelon, Timothy might have some grapes, but we all bring something to the table and we all elevate each other, because if somebody doesn't have it, someone's always willing to help somebody else out. And that's what I've always loved about this environment and the community.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So does anybody else have a experience that they want to go ahead?
I have a couple.
Okay.
I share a couple. I don't know how I'm going to follow Dre, but like that was inspiring. I'll try. So impactful most recently was Mega Orlando this year, because the wedding I'm going to is a friend that I made there as cosplayers. But it was such a unique atmosphere. It was really that first big push back. It was a reset, but you could feel the energy. People were so happy. I don't think I've actually been asked, and it's going to sound bad, and Curly might be able to, possibly understand this. As a female, you generally get ogled or, photos are like secretly being taken. This year, I had more people politely, women and men, is it possible I can take my photo with you? Is it okay if I put my, so respectful? And I get chills thinking about it because it was like, we needed that push. Am I right or am I right?
Yeah. It's been getting better all the time, every year, I feel like.
Yeah. So that was really impressive. And I had my family time with my friends. I made new ones that are now family. So that's probably the most recent. I got feedback, I'm sorry. And then a couple of years ago when I was hosting panels at Tampa Bay Comic Con, I had the awesome opportunity to create the Tampa Bay Comic Con talent show. And it's still going strong throughout the year, but I created that first one. And the first one, we had a couple of people show up. The second year that I did it, we had the biggest ballroom. People were outside. We had 25 acts. But it was so cool, kind of like what Jay was saying with the farmers market. Everybody has their own unique talents. It wasn't a cosplay competition. We had an acrobat artist. We had a whole band. We had this incredible guy who won. He did the entire traveling song from a Goofy movie in all the voices.
Nice.
It was amazing. And people were so embracive of, everybody is there. You weren't teasing someone. Someone was being picked on. Everybody was coming together to enjoy and kind of show off what else they could do. And it was just a good time. There was no negativity. And I really love that about this community. When you find that group of people, or you find that, your people, birds of a feather flock together, but we all have different kind of stripes underneath. And when you find that group together, it's good. When you have the bad, if you can ignore the bad and you don't let it get to you, it's even better.
Right. And with these conventions, like I said, there's so many different types of conventions. And do you see a difference whether you go to like a video game convention or a horror convention or an anime convention to a comic convention to something like MegaCon where it's a little bit everything? Do you see a difference in how things are how the community is, or is it the same?
Depends on the convention. Because I went to two very small first year conventions this year, where they were 1 or 2 days. It was like $5 to get in, and everybody was having a great time. Other conventions, I avoid at all costs simply because it is just a drama mill. But between going to like Mega compared to a horror convention, of the group that I tend to stay with, it was great. But other people that were going to other shows were voicing their concerns online or directly to me of why is it not like this convention? Why is this convention this? And I think we all kind of have, a general common thread with a couple of the ones that we want to avoid because we want to be above that. But yeah, no, I know the right ones to attend and what not to attend at this point, I think.
All right. Does anybody else want to chime in on that one?
Well, I'll just make a quick comment. I've been a retailer and I've been a creator both times, and I'm kind of new to the whole cosplay thing. Like I said, we had just done our first one. It was with a professional guy by the name of Night Mage. Anybody here know this fella, Night Mage?
Michael Wilson.
Oh my God, Michael Wilson. He is the best, man, this guy. And I'm telling you, we had more fun, and he was so professional and inspiring. I see cosplay now in a whole new light. Which before I always kind of liked it, but I didn't get that the people really work their whole personality into it. And it's really more than just the character, right? It's almost like the cosplayer's their own character kind of, and they have this role. And so, man, I just want to say my experience was very positive. I get it. There's probably different things that happen to female cosplayers. I don't think I'm qualified to maybe speak on that. You know what I'm saying, right? So, but I don't only ever work with a male cosplayer. And this is just this weekend at Baltimore. And man, he had the crowd riled up and everybody was stopping to take pictures. And plus, if when you know the guy, he's kind of inspirational, right? Like he's all about achieving your goals and being the best person you can be. And, all his money that he gets from cosplay goes to his charity. He supports different charities. In this case, it was for families that had one person that had breast cancer in it. They're called the Red Devils.
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
That's the charity that he works with. So I just wanted to chime in. My experience with the cosplay was so positive. I mean, it was beyond what I expected. Put it that way.
Yeah. So Leonard, we were talking off air here, and you were telling me in the comedy scene some of the stuff that you have seen, with different. What do you call it? The comedy, stores or
just different comedy clubs.
Comedy clubs, yeah.
They get exclusionary. Like they'll say if you're gonna perform at a club, it's gonna be our club, and if you go anywhere else, you're gonna get blacklisted, or you won't be allowed at ours anymore. And it's like anybody who knows how the comedy scene works, the best thing you can do is get more stage time, and then in different venues because every crowd's not going to be the same. So when you have one company saying that they're insisting that everybody goes through them and avoids the other places, it's an unhealthy environment in my opinion. It's kind of like I've been a vendor, I've been a creator, I've been a cosplayer, and it's like, and I've seen where each of those I've caught hell for one thing or the other. It's like I've talked to other vendors who get mad about cosplayers at shows, and I'm like, well, they're kind of like, that's just part of the scene. That's the nature of the beast. But these guys are like, well, I don't like it when that guy in his Michael Keaton Batman outfit strutting around in front of my book table and blah, 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 and people can't see my merch and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like,
okay.
But at the same token,
Yeah,
I know. It's like, but you know what? If you have them hang out there long enough, there's going to be people walking up to that table eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I
So-
want to chime in right there on that, if you don't mind. I noticed that's definitely true. You're better off having the cause, because originally I had heard the same thing that you had mentioned,
Yeah.
Leonard, and people said, hey, well, they're going to block my booth. But the reality is the opposite. If you have something interesting to see or do, you're pulling more people in than are taking away.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Before
I was at I was working a con a few years back, and I had a bunch of just different random items. And I had a Captain America shield, like a big replica. And one of my neighbor vendors was just not. He didn't have a lot of flair. I said, "You got to have something going." You know, I had music playing. I had like some little crazy lights and stuff just to get people's attention. He didn't really have anything, so I said, "Well, why don't you hang the shield down there, and that'll be an attention getter because you need that to draw people in."
Yeah.
And it worked.
when you like, that's a very good thing that you brought that up, because when you look at cities like Las Vegas, I mean, they like go far out there, you know, just to invite people. That's why like all the hotels are themed and stuff. So yeah, when you're at a convention, the more glitz and glamour, you know, people are gonna be like, what's going on over there? They're gonna want to go check it out. But I do want to bring this up because our friend James over in the UK, he wanted to be on, but he couldn't make it. He's not feeling well, but he's curious. What is the strangest thing that has ever happened at a con?
I'll go first on that one. In Baltimore, I had an intoxicated young woman come up to me, and we had to wear masks. Of course, everybody to go in had to wear masks, and she started an anti-vax ranting, which of course it wasn't up to me. I was wearing a mask, and I finally, after 2 minutes, I finally said, "Yeah, you know what? I'm getting a phone call. Anything just came up." She said, "Oh, just like that, huh?" Yeah, just like that. I'm not sure what you want me to do about the mask. But by the way, I respect that there's different.
Oh my God.
There's different opinions about everything, but it's their rule, right? You gotta wear the mask to do the thing. So just wear the mask and move on with your day.
It's so funny because those type of people, they actually made a horror movie that came out this year. I kid you not, I thought it was fake. It's called Karen.
yeah, man.
It's a legit horror movie. There's a trailer, and I don't know if it's out already, but yeah, it's.
Yeah, I caught
That's
it.
rough.
I was at a convention in Indianapolis a few years back, and one of the weirdest things, and I thought it was pretty dodgy. They had, you know, it's standard for it to have panels and discussions and things throughout the day. They had one on diversity and inclusion in comics, and the entire panel was all white dudes.
I just did a diversity panel where it wasn't all white dudes, but yeah.
That's not diverse. I thought maybe it's an improv comedy group. Nope, it wasn't.
Yeah. One of the
was it intentional or were they?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Tim.
Was it intentional or were they trying to get it and nobody came? Something like that.
I don't know. I just know that, you know, if you want to get diverse voices, you should get diverse people, and they didn't do that. So
That's terrible.
So
yeah.
I know Heather has short time today, so I do want to bring this up because I want to hear her opinion along with everyone else. Okay, without mentioning any names, we hear stories. You know, Leonard talked about it in the comedy circuit, but here in the convention circuit, and very well known, documented here in Florida, a certain convention will threaten vendors and agents of celebrities that if they do other shows, they can no longer do that show. Yep. Have you guys heard about this in areas where you guys live? And if not, what do you think about stuff like this? This, you know, falls under bullying. And how do we combat stuff like this?
You just don't go to their conventions anymore. And word of mouth is the strongest form of marketing. And if you complain about something, if you have a bad experience, it's proven you are more than likely to tell at least 10 people or twice as many as you would if you had a good experience. Right. And with a particular convention, Brian, that you and I have spoken about, the more I talk to my vendor friends, because I've not only been a vendor, I've not only run events, I've not only been a volunteer, I've not only been a celebrity liaison and working directly for a celebrity multiple times for this specific convention that we're not mentioning. The more that I just kind of like let sleeping dogs lie, the more I'm seeing that other people are having similar, if not worse, experiences. And I just don't go. I want to go because it was something I've done for quite some time, but I redirect my attention, and I have friends who are like, you should start your own convention. You just don't go. That's plain and simple how you stop the bullying.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, you got to look at it like this. We're all geeks in some way, shape, or form, whether it's the wrestling, whether it's the comics, whether it's the cosplay, or whatever.
All the above.
Yeah, and exactly. And the fact that we were probably, I'm sure some of you probably experienced people giving you grief behind it when you were growing up, like in school. I remember, before the MCU was what it was, and it's like, and I remember being in school and having like on a Superman shirt, people looking at me funny. I'm like, what?
Dude, I was in the band and drama.
Yeah. So there you go. Same here. So I feel like comicdom, or the fandom in general, should have a more open approach to dealing with people, whether it's somebody new to the fandom or somebody who's been around a long time, but more opening and welcome. And to act in an exclusionary manner just denotes a serious.
Here's my, and not to interrupt, it's not even an exclusionary manner. It's literally people that feel threatened by those like us who are kind, who want to have that community, that family. They feel threatened. And that is what I've determined. And I could get on my soapbox for another 5 hours. They are so determined to bully you out and push you out. I was told that I walk around like I have a sense of entitlement. I've had someone's hand in my face that works specifically for a convention. I've been threatened. I've had friends who are vendors this year whose parents were both in the hospital who put a deposit down and were told, sorry, you don't get your money back, can't transfer it either. Her parents are literally on their deathbeds and she is 2.5 hours away. But because we're standing up and we're going, no, and if you want to go to that convention, cool, but this is what's going on. Oh no. They're so threatened by how strong we are and that we don't get involved with their minuscule like little drama. That's why they'll do that exclusion or make you feel like you can't do it or block you on social media, or if you pay for a ticket and you literally get followed around until you're so uncomfortable that you have to leave, or call the cops.
Yeah,
that's called being a chicken.
Well, there's a level of control too. It's like these people feel like they have the right to control the monopoly of the air of whatever's happening, and if they can't control the community, then they somehow lose control of their foothold or whatever. And it's like, that's not really what it is about. It's about bringing everybody up. Competition never hurt anyone.
Competition should be friendly. And I'm in the industry. I do events, I do sales, I do marketing, I do everything. You never look at a competitor and be like, F them. You literally are like, hey, cool. So we're going to be friends. It's friendly. Because if I can't handle something, for a certain weekend or whatever, I'm going to be like, hey, so-and-so down the street, I know that they're going to do a great job of it. These conventions should all be united under this community, not necessarily the same company, but we're all here for the same thing. We're all here for the fandom. We're all here for that cosplay. We're all here to buy really cool stuff. And, Dre getting told like, that's what he should be doing with his life. And look where you are. Like, we should all, right. We should, I'm sorry, I'm like not trying to be on the soapbox here.
No, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
But by bringing everybody up, we make ourselves better. If you have competition, you're looking at it going, okay, how do I make myself better to stay relevant, to stay competitive, to stay worthy of people's money and time? That's everything that's happening here is revolving around his name and how he wants it to be in other people's mouths.
Right.
And he doesn't really care if it's bad.
Oh yeah. No. You're only as good as the company you keep. And you always want to try to keep yourself around people that can help better you. And if you don't find that you are being supported by your family, by your friends, and by the people that are supposed to be encouraging your growth, then those people don't need to be around. Same thing with conventions. It's a Napoleon complex for this specific convention. And they're trying so desperately hard to hold on to things, and so many things have been done in the last several years that they're losing their grip, and they're trying every tactic they possibly can to get rid of the negative Nancys and like hold on to the strong people, but then they're just making enemies constantly, and there's a very big great divide. Or you have people who are like, I'm going to go for one vendor and I'm piecing out because I do not want to support whatsoever.
Right. I told Leonard, it. You don't see McDonald's and Burger King, arguing like, yeah, I went in for a Big Mac today, but tomorrow I'm gonna go get, a Whopper. You don't see them threatening each other. They coexist like Coke and Pepsi.
But like I said, competition makes you better.
Right.
And the problem with this specific thing is like when you go online and you start looking at people's comments, you should be proactive, or you should at least, if not proactive, then you need to be reactive and apologize or work to fix that.
What happened? In
Now,
their eyes, they're not doing anything wrong. In their eyes, they're getting rid of the toxic people, but they're the ones that are, pretty soon they're going to keep eating away, and then they're going to be starving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is how we fix things is conversation like this. See,
the problem is that people don't want to hear it. Once somebody tells them they're wrong, they don't want to hear it because they truly believe they're right. They truly believe there's nothing wrong with the way they've been.
I literally have the person that put their hands on my face from this specific convention has tried to follow me around for the better part of 10 years, going to every event, everything I've been involved in some way, shape, or form, and trying to create like a We Hate Heather club. And I mean, to the point where it literally affects things in my personal life. And it's hard to rise above it. And it's unbelievable that this person doesn't even live here anymore and will come down for this convention, for other conventions, and just weasel their way in. And it's just like, are you kidding me? Like, do you literally have nothing better to do with your life? We're supposed to embrace each other, not shoot each other. There's no reason to do that.
I agree 110%. What you said there, Heather. No one should have to contend with that kind of nonsense on any level. Period. Yeah. I don't care what somebody's status in life is. And Nicole, something you said really I really like to elevate as well about the idea of competition should make you better. And I agree. We're all nerds here, so you're all gonna understand. Every single hero has a rival. Every single one of them. Whether you go to anime, whether you go to action comics, whether you go to anywhere, Goku, Vegeta, Superman, Lex Luthor, whatever. It's always if your competition is here, you go up here. If you go up here, your competition goes here. Yep. Rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the idea is that everybody gets to eat. The idea that Heather has been harassed and being mistreated by whoever the individuals may be shows how much they do not understand how real competition functions.
Right.
It's super.
Go, please, Craig.
Oh, I was going to say that's super true with cosplayers too. Every now and then you get a cosplayer who's like, no, I own this character. Like, I'm the only one at the convention who should cosplay, say, Captain America or something. And everyone has a better experience, actually, even if you view it as a competition, because cosplay isn't always a competition. But even when it is, that can help because you walk up to each other and you're like, hey, how did you attach this thing? Like, how do you have your shield holstered back there? And there's
how are you not dying because it looks like it weighs 50 pounds being made out of Eva? Like,
right? Like,
I just made the decision to leave a nonprofit cosplaying group a couple of weeks ago because there was a lot of that nonsense. And you have to submit your costuming to get approved for an event, fine. But so-and-so's who's an admin's wife or so-and-so's admin's girlfriend or whatever, well, they do it. It's not necessarily the costume that they're telling you have to have, but it's because it's, playing favorites and nepotism. But it got so toxic. And instead of being like, hey, Heather, how'd you do that? Or like, hey, you know, like what can we do to be better? They're like, it's just too toxic. But yeah, I agree. We learn from each other, and that's what we're all here for.
Yeah, I get so excited when I see somebody wearing the same costume as me, especially if it's at the same time, because then I'm like, especially when you have all these built-in topics, like there are Elseworlds and what ifs and like multiverse theories and like almost every franchise. And so then like, it's kind of like a role play thing that you didn't even mean to happen, where you're like, hey, Flashpoint type of deal.
Yeah.
Hey, Earth One, like.
I handmade my Scarlet Witch. Handmade her, my WandaVision Scarlet Witch. And when I went to Mega, everyone's like, oh my God, my costume didn't come with it. I'm like, no, I made this. They're like, wait, I bought it from this cosplay company. I'm like, no, this is what I did. And they were kind of blown away by that. And then they're like, oh, I should have done that. That was a good idea. And I'm like, well, I have a friend who can help you do that. Or let me teach you how to do that. I like that. That's the community that I want to be part of. I want to learn. And I want to have people embrace the differences. It's fun.
If I may interject for a hot second, Crayley, you were going on about everybody seeing everybody the same costume, about the same cosplay. Quick funny story that I did have in regards to that. I was at Awesome Con a couple years ago, and I saw a little boy. He was in a Spider-Man costume, and he was crying. And I went to him. I said, "Hey, are you okay? Is everything all right?" And he said, "I lost my mom. I lost my mom." I was like, "Oh man, he lost his mother." I said, "What is she wearing?" She's like, "She's Spider-Gwen." I said, "Okay, cool. I'm gonna go find Spider-Gwen." So small boy, you know how cons go. Everybody's everywhere. So I put him on my shoulders. And so I go and I find, she's like, "Oh, there she is. There she is. There's 10 Spider-Gwens." Clustered together. I'm sitting there like, oh my dear God.
You just hold the kid up in the air. Is this anybody?
Exactly. So I had to pull a Simba. I was like, has anybody lost a Spider-Man?
Who belongs to this Spider-Man?
and then all
yes,
all of them turned around, and then the mother was like, oh my God. I was like, there she is. There she is. And she was like, where's your brother? I was like, whoop. I was like, let me drop this.
We only have one.
I'm gonna go ahead and kiss the rings. I'm out of here. But but I love and like all those different Spider-Gwens were all different, and they were still all amazing. And so I can attest to exactly what you're talking about, Crayley. It's a creative marvel at times to see.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard, you want to hop in on this?
Yeah, I was actually going to say I think it's an interesting phenomenon that's been happening. I don't know if any of you heard about it, but people will cosplay as Doctor Who characters and go to Renaissance festivals, and they kind of write it off as being time travel.
Yes,
which
they do.
Yeah, which cracks me up. And then I've seen some of the Star Trek people do the same thing, so it all kind of works out. As far as people being Darwinistic over their costume choices, it's like, you couldn't do that at Doctor Who convention, no way, because it's built to the mythology. You're gonna have different variations, you know. I actually used to cosplay as Captain Jack Harkness, and the year John Barrowman, I want to say it was 2014 maybe. He was at Wizard World Chicago, and I came up to him dressed as Captain Jack, and I saluted him and said, "Hi, Captain Jack Darkness," and he laughed so hard. He grabbed me up in the photo op and he just hugged me. He's like, "Get over here!" And so when we took our photo together, it's just like we're both just cheesing and like cracking up because it was just a fun time. I think if the cosplay scene started to get a bit toxic as far as people getting angry and upset over, like, say, the contest or people wearing the same things, you know, I've been to conventions where they didn't have, like some of the smaller scale shows that didn't have cosplay contests. People came dressed up anyway. So, I mean, it's cool to maybe try to get dressed up to win some money, but, you know, that can bring out the bad in people. Like one year there was a con I was at, and a guy, they had professional cosplayers, I think they're like as judges, and they told the guy, they said, well, you have a nice outfit, but just looks store bought. Like you got everything from the store. There's no there's no craftsmanship. And the guy had a meltdown at the show and on the message boards, on their Facebook page and everything behind it. And I was just like, you spent that much money to get your outfit, obviously store bought. I don't know if he's local or from another city. He paid to get in, and then he has this hissy fit. I'm just like, were you that hard up for money? I mean, what's the story there? Or is just he need that ego stroke?
Facts.
Yeah. And, I just wanted to make this comment because you brought up John Barrowman. Is there any other male out there that makes walking in heels just look...
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry.
Sure.
RuPaul, he was on Jimmy Fallon one time, and he referred to Ru as a drag queen, and RuPaul went, "No, I am the queen of drag." And I was just like, there you go.
Yeah, I got a Barrowman story. We were at MegaCon. When was this? 2014. And Nicole was pregnant with Oliver. And we were doing a bullying, anti-bullying thing with our son for middle school. He was in 6th grade, and he was working with their like news media thing. And he interviewed John Barrowman, and John Barrowman told the story of coming to America, not only being Scottish but also being gay and being bullied for having an accent, and also for liking boys and stuff. And he turned to Nicole after the interview and said, "Oh, you're having a baby." He's like, we're like, "Yeah, his name's Oliver." He goes, "Oh, so you failed the city."
That's perfect.
Yeah, and it's so funny because that was the same year that Manu Bennett was also a guest at MegaCon. So yeah, it was 2014 because Jason David Frank was there as well. And a couple years later, we met Manu Bennett at the MegaCon in Tampa when they ran their second show in Tampa, which the Tampa market's weird, but that's another show.
It's a mess.
And Manu remembered meeting Nicole when she was pregnant. And we just wanted to be like, "Hey, this is Oliver." And Manu said, "Oh, you didn't fail the city." So
redemption.
Yes. All right. So we're going to lose Heather here soon. Is there any... That's all right. You got, something cool you're going to.
Bouncy house at a wedding. That's awesome. I mean, I can't. How can I not?
Nice. So, is there anything else you want to add before leaving, Heather?
I will add that I'm very happy that I found more of my people, because it's silly to say, but it's like you never know what kind of situation you're going to walk into. You never know who's going to be at each other's throats. But it's nice to know that there are people none of us really knew each other coming into this, and we all have the same common thread. We all want the same thing for the community. It makes me feel good that there are good people out there still. So I appreciate you guys. We'll definitely have to do this again, please. And now y'all are stuck with me. I'm going to start adding y'all on social media.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah. I have the important question to ask you, Heather, because I want to end this with you before you go, is what does community mean to you?
Love, support.
Yeah.
Community means love and support. That's finding the differences in each other and embracing them.
Nice.
That's it. Dre, what's the face?
I'm with it. Everything you just said, I could not have said better. You like first thing that came to my head was love, and you said it right out your mouth. You took my thunder, but it's all
I'm
good.
Sorry, my bad. That's off the top of my head. I'm sure I could come up with the.
Now I gotta come up with something else. Look
See, I had to follow you, now you
like
gotta follow me.
You like this.
So before you go, where can people that are listening find you on social media?
Find me on Facebook. I'll pretty much add anybody. That's terrible. And then if they want to support local restaurants in South Florida, if they're nearby, or follow our journey into nonprofits, stillservingflorida.com. If you want to check out the next Fan Expo meetup for the Orlando area for the month of November, you can go to meetups.fanexpo.com or just type in Fan Expo HQ Orlando. And then we do like virtual meetups. I do trivia. We do just, random table talks. We did a huge Halloween Horror Nights panel last year with a lot of the creative heads. And then we do in-person events. So find me anywhere. I'm pretty friendly. And if you're mean to me, I'm going to block you. That's pretty much what it is.
Fair enough.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate everything. Thank you guys. Happy Halloween, everybody. It's my favorite time of year.
Happy Halloween.
Halloween. Here,
Nice
Nicole,
to
you want
meet
to say
you.
goodbye to Heather real
Oh,
quick?
bye, Heather.
Talk later. Mwah, mwah.
Definitely. Bye.
Thanks.
Enjoy.
Bye, guys. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
A wedding with the bounty house.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
I feel so shown up now. Like my wedding had cabins with fire pits, and we all had like bonfires the whole weekend. And I'm
That's
like,
pretty nice.
you mean? Oh, and there were foosball tables and ping pong tables upstairs in our venue. And I'm like,
Dang.
why didn't we do a bouncy house?
We needed a bouncy house.
There's a bounty house that I would totally love to have, and it's the Millennium Falcon, and it's like a full-size Millennium Falcon, like to scale. So I don't know. After the show, Google it. Just type in Millennium Falcon bounce house, and it's available for like party rentals and stuff. You can go into the cockpit. You can play the chessboard and everything.
So, Brian, what you're saying is we need to go ahead and get one of these things. Forget
Yeah.
the kids. We're going to go over there and have ourselves a good time.
That's right.
Yeah, Barfleet don't have nothing on them, huh?
Hey,
Yeah.
hear that.
So this is the real community of the convention scene here. So let's go ahead and kind of plug our stuff here. So Leonard, you want to talk about some of the work that you have out right now?
Sure. I've got some prose poetry and short fiction, Amos-Cola.com. That's short for Amos Collaborative. It used to be Amos Magazine. I've basically taken some characters from public domain and kind of given my own little spin on them. So like I've got stories that feature like the Scarlet Ace, Gilgamesh. Actually, I used the Six Emperors from my comic that I co-wrote with James McCord. And basically they're a team of villains who, they have a cabal and they've been running things from the shadows, and every once in a while they have to protect their turf. So the team consists of Dracula, Captain Nemo, Mr. Hyde, Helen of Troy, Bride of Frankenstein, and Professor Moriarty. And it's just been a blast. Like, we've got the 2 issues that are out currently, did a limited print run with those, and we're working on actually putting out a full volume of collected works. But yeah, if you want to check out some of my writings, you can there. Want to check out some of me acting, you can check out Canary Currency on Amazon Prime or Tubi TV, which is actually free. So get in where you fit in. And as far as AACW, old school wrestling, you can hit them up on Facebook. They stream a lot of bits of their matches and things. And of course, if you're ever in Kokomo, Indiana, by all means, check out one of their events. I mean, the shows get pretty wild. They had a bring your own weapon match a couple of months ago, which was insane.
Why do I not know about this? I also live in central Indiana. Like, we have to talk after this. We have to talk.
Absolutely, we will. But at the bring your own weapon match, they said no guns, no knives. People brought in baseball bats, broom handles, lead pipes, and they were throwing them up toward the ring to get the wrestlers to use on their opponent. And the craze that got, somebody threw a dildo in the ring. But neither of the wrestlers would pick it up. They just kicked it out of the ring and just kept fighting. I'm like, that's probably a good call. Nobody wants to say they like beat somebody with a dildo or got beat by one. So
that will make headlines.
Yeah. But that's the thing. The indie wrestling circuit. I've only been an announcer for like a year, so I kind of came in right before the plague hit, and it's been fun because it's very interactive. The wrestlers are pretty approachable. You get your money's worth. I mean, like a $10 show, it's like probably it's more bang for your buck. I'm telling you. So
Well, I was gonna say you have a great announcer's voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, for real.
I mean, I can totally hear it. Who else on the panel likes pro wrestling?
Oh, that would be me, good sir. That would be me. That would be me. I actually had trained back in the day for MMA and Strikeforce years ago because I wanted to be a professional wrestler. I wanted to do it, and I, of course, grew up as a fan. Obviously, I used to watch, old WWF and back all the WCW and all that great stuff back in the day. And I fell off for a while, and I was trying to get into real fighting, and injuries started piling up. And then I was like, well, I guess I'll get behind this computer and do a real job. But I've always been a fan of pro wrestling, old school wrestling, modern, and not so much. I'm starting to get into AEW now, but like WWE is starting to, but like I'll watch the pay-per-view since I have Peacock, so I might as well, like I'm paying for it, so I'll watch them. But I did like even now I'm still a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. I still do my thing. Like if I get in the square circle, I can still do a couple suplexes here and there. But like Leonard, I'd rather be behind the desk without question if I had to get up in there. But yeah, but big ups on you, Leonard. Especially in the indies, in the indies, those were the real wrestling. That's what real wrestlers are, in my personal opinion. Because there's a lot of skilled people. A lot of skilled people out there doing all types of crazy stuff that gets the fans into it. You know what I mean? And and even the stories that's crafted around it are a whole lot better than a lot of mainstream pro wrestling. So yeah, good on you, Len. I wish I could be in Indiana and catch your commentary. That would be dope.
Yeah. I'll have to come back to Leonard and Dre about a wrestling question. But Krayley, do you have any of those the Pokemon stuff near you that you could show?
I can go grab a couple. I will be right back.
Okay, while she does that, Timothy, you want to talk about what you do?
Yes, sir. Like I was saying, my name's Timothy Fling. I'm a writer and creator based out of York, Pennsylvania. I definitely got to follow Dre. I was listening to his story, and it seems like we had a couple of similarities there. I started as a comic collector and a little bit of an art collector. And about 2015, I started putting my money into making pages. And then, like I say, it's a slippery slope. Before you know it, you're making books, right? So I'm getting ready to put out tonight is my, the 8th one or the 9th one. We're called Earth Dog Studios, and we write Socket, Water Wars 2288. And tonight is the big science fiction release of our new book. It's called Lost at Sea. It's a futuristic naval thriller. And best of all, it's got a robot Marilyn Monroe. So if you like that kind of thing, I definitely recommend you check it out. And there's going to be some fun stuff too. I'm not going to release everything yet, but I'll tell you guys, we're making a hard push toward having neat additions for people that subscribe to our products digitally. Now, Brian, I think you're kind of me. I'm kind of a print guy. Dre, do you like the printed book or the digital?
I am a print man.
Yeah, I'm a print guy too. So I still print my books, and it is a print company. But, we got to pay attention to these digital buyers, right? And the folks that email these fine items. And one of them is we're writing our own soundtrack this time. We've written all our own songs. Hold on, it gets one better. I don't know if any of you guys are video game people at all, but we've taken the songs, which are like full rock productions, and we're boiling them down into like 8-bit video game theme songs.
Whoa.
Yeah, so our soundtrack's going to sound a little bit like a Super Mario song, if you know what I mean. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's something that you just get, just for taking a look at it. It comes to your email, and you can either view it in the player or you can download it and keep it to your phone, something like that. So that's a good example of the kind of thing that we're trying to do to just be a little different, Yeah.
Who's the character behind you?
Oh, this is our last book. That's her name is Citizen 0313. One of the hallmarks of the series that we write is that they tend to be female protagonists. Basically, it's an impossible apocalyptic world, and the heroes are generally strong female characters.
Nice.
Tim, everything you said is dope.
Yeah, I kind of think you might like it. I'm a little bit familiar with Brutal Planet. I'm going to be following you after this because I have heard that name before. So I'll make sure maybe you and I could team up on something. But I'm mostly in the sci-fi thing now. And when I say I do the female characters too, they are sort of like sometimes people say the ass kicking female. It's a little bit like like if you like aliens or stuff like that. Nobody has any powers or anything like that, but they're just trying to survive in kind of this terrible world.
So like Sarah Connor or Ripley.
Yeah, very much. If you like that, this would be aimed right at you. And even there's other characters in the series too. It's almost divided to where it wasn't intentional, but all the bad guys are all the males. They're all on one side, and all the the women tend to be the heroes in these stories. Yeah. And it comes down to, at the end, what I'm trying to do is to write some more emotional content. And in the end, they're figuring out somehow, either with their wits or with some kind of resourcefulness, they're not shooting at each other at the end.
Yeah. Nice.
If you follow me, that's what I'm trying to do, and we'll see if that works.
But Tim, what you're crafting is pretty bold, and it's dope.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
I myself, I am a fan of the sci-fi and action and superhero genres.
Yeah.
And one thing I like what you were talking about is the transitioning between the written word and the spoken word and the musical word.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, I love that. That
Thanks.
Is really cool because like I myself, and I like writing song lyrics as well. And I implement that also into my books that I craft. So so
let me ask you a question. And Brian, I don't mean to get off track. Tell me if I'm going off. So Dre, when you started it, so you write it and now you're a publisher too?
Yes. So I write, I edit, I produce, and I direct. The only thing I don't do is the art. I do self-published, but I connect with one of my friends who started his own pretty much indie comic site called spinwiz.com.
Oh yeah. Sure, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, and currently on the Spinwiz app, and my series is actually one of the flagships for his site and app now.
And which one is that? Which one is that, Dre?
Mine is Treble.
Okay.
The Rhythm Within, which is the character you see behind you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll check that out, man. I'll definitely check it out.
It's definitely it's funny because my grab it. My issue number 5 prints just came in.
Yeah, congrats.
It just came in yesterday. So I'm feeling good about that. So
excellent. It looks great. It looks great.
It's been a long time coming. So I'm producing number 6 right now, but I'm really proud of this series. It's my love child.
Yeah, sure, man. Congrats for getting it onto Spinwiz. I've heard good things about that.
Yeah, it's on the up and up. We're climbing. Me and the president owner Jeff Palumbo, one of the greatest dudes in the industry, one of the best dudes out here. When he started it, he approached me. He was like, "Hey Dre, I know you're in the midst of producing this series. I want you to come onto my platform." And I was like, "Jeff, say less. I got you." I was like, "Yeah, I'll definitely put on it." But he's dope, and I'm really proud of the work that we do over there.
Well, congrats on that. I wish you guys a lot of success.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, and Spinwiz is one of the guys who's saying to increase the digital content too. So we've all got to be aware of that, right? Things are changing a little bit. I think we're all going to still be print guys. I'm a collector too. By any chance, are you a comic collector?
My wife would kill me if I take out.
I kind of sensed it.
So of course I used to have all my draw boxes, right? So my wife was like, "Hey, there's no space nowhere. You got to do something about this." So I got all these custom made binders, and I got some new hook binder ring sleeves, and then a real reseal. So I got stacks of binders.
Could I ask one more quick question of you? Please. So then if you're a collector, you probably remember which book or which title made you want to become a creator. What was your
that's a good question.
Yeah, right. I remember mine.
Oh my God. Okay. Where do I start? Okay.
You gotta pick one. Hey, I know there's probably 100. I'm like that too. But you gotta pick the best one.
Okay. The first one that just comes to my mind and made me want to become a creator was a very, very not well-known comic called Sentinel. And it was written by Sean McKeever, and the art was by Udon Art Studios. I don't know if you remember you, Don, that used to do a lot of manga, anime-esque art stuff.
Yeah.
And basically, it is a story about, it was a coming-of-age story, but it was crossed into the Marvel Universe. And a kid who's very poor and he lives in a junkyard with his father finds a downed Sentinel.
Oh, neat.
And he repairs it, and it becomes a buddy cop thing almost, with a Sentinel, mutant hunting Sentinel, and he ends up
Sure, I know what you're talking about.
creating basically, and he's using it to try to get popular, but of course, obviously, it's a Sentinel. So problems ensue. But the crafting of that story was done so well, and this was maybe 2003, 2000, over there back then. The crafting was done so well, and the characters so well developed. I got emotionally invested.
Sure.
I got emotionally invested in the stories of the main protagonist and his friends, and it moved me. There's not many like you, Tim. I've been a lifelong comic book fan.
Sure.
But there's very few stories that actually move me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can pull out the Infinity Gauntlet and have the greatest time of my life, or I can look at Uncanny X-Men from the 60s till the 90s and have the greatest run ever.
Yeah.
But to have a story that I'm like, hey, I see me in this.
Yeah, that's great, man. It's really cool that you can, when you can look back and see where your inspiration was. It's always really interesting to be different folks, what they had for their inspiration. And that's a good one. And I'll tell you, you explained it well. One of the things I think we forget as comic creators, or maybe it's just me that forgets this, we try to create these big scenes and these epic battles, right? And we sort of forget that the small moments are what the readers remember, and sometimes the quiet moments. And I'm very big on panels that don't have any words on them, things like that, where they're just, you have to digest it for a minute.
And Tim, that is one aspect. I'm so glad you said that too, because that's one aspect in my writing that I'm trying to perfect.
Yeah, sure.
The non-spoken word.
Mm-hmm.
In my third issue of Trouble, there is a panel in which there's a major event that happens, and then there's psychological problems that my protagonist has to deal with, and his mother confronts him because he had to lie to her about it. And I put a panel in which he's just sitting there sobbing to himself.
Yeah. Sure.
No words, no panels. I mean, just a panel, obviously a panel. No bubbles, no sound, nothing. It's just him sitting there sulking.
How many? First of all, that sounds great. How many issues of Trouble do you have in the can so far?
So 5 have been produced.
Okay.
The whole series is going to be 8 issues. This series is going to be 8 issues. But 5 are produced. 6 is on the way. 6 is on the way. And it is a labor of love. Like, this one was a labor of love because I wanted to tell this story for so long. That, like, it was almost willed itself onto the screen. It was just one of those things. But I really am trying to, like you said, master the unspoken word when it comes to paneling, because it's a very tough art. Because when you think of, like, let's just say the most popular one that I can just pop off the top of my head, think of Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
Think of Samurai Jack. Very few words were spoken throughout that entire series.
Yeah.
But we knew exactly what was going on through facial expressions, through the movements of the wind, whatever the other 4 senses that we're taking in. We were able to identify what was going on. And that's a very, very, very tough task. And I am actually at this time trying to master that. So it's I'm glad you said that, Tim. You really
and I get the sense that you and I are kind of similar, like we approach it the same way. That's how I was asking you. I speaking directly, I never really wanted to be the publisher. It happened to me accidentally. The first issue we did, it was under another publisher. And, heck, it's 2021. You don't have to wait for the publisher anymore. If you have a great idea and you got artists in your stable, make your book, man, take it to Kickstarter or whatever. So that's what I've been doing.
And that's the right move.
Yeah. Are you a Kickstarter guy too?
I kickstarted, I think, my first 2 issues. I kickstarted the first 2.
All right.
But then COVID, and then I was focusing so much on production that because I had to take my I had to move my focuses around and paying my artists and all that stuff. Sure. So I didn't kickstart the other ones, but nonetheless, it's like the domino effect's already there because folks are already looking.
Yeah, once you get going, it's like you're starting a train, right? It starts rolling.
Yeah,
it doesn't really stop.
Yeah, I see Brian's been itching. Brian, you're trying to say something.
No, this is great. I mean, this is the type of show that I love, where I've networked people, and it looks like in the future you guys maybe.
I was actually thinking to myself, this is definitely the kind of thing we could partner up on.
Yeah,
and I do if we do Kickstarters, like I say, I got mine starts tonight at midnight. That's Lost at Sea. And if you want to do any kind of digital swap, what I do is any kind of digital copy that I might have in my stable, I'll give you a free one. You can advertise it with your book. And if they back you, maybe they'll get one of mine and say, hey, this one's not bad. Maybe they'll check one of mine out too.
Okay. That sounds pretty tough.
But there's no cost to it. And I've got about 8 or 10 already that I work with, and we all trade. So if you join, it's kind of like you'd get in the ring with 8 or 10 of us.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah, given that you guys are both indie creators, and I mean, we all are actually.
We all are, yeah.
It's interesting. There have been times I've pitched companies that are looking for new things or fresh things or something different takes and different spins. And I've noticed there have been a few times where I've been told like Cape books are dead. Like that's come up. I've had two different publishers. One specifically told me emails that Cape books are dead. It's a done deal. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, yeah, tell that to Disney, tell that to Warner Brothers. I think people are, it's quantity over quality. You just have to find the quality Cape book that you like. Like, when you guys were talking about the first book that really kind of pulled you in, for me, it was a matter of reading a book, and suddenly I was at that age where I'm like, who wrote this? Who drew this? And it was a one shot from the 80s. Marvel did. It was called Spider-Man versus Wolverine. And it was like this, to me, it was like an ultimate fish out of water story, because you had Spider-Man over in like Berlin, and he's running around dealing with spies and all this crazy stuff. And Wolverine shows up, and he knows who he is because he recognized him by his scent. And so he's like, get your webs and stuff. Come on, let's go, kid. You're going to help me out. And this is before everybody knew what Wolverine's real name was, where he was just Logan, and he smoked cigarettes and cigars, and, the classic mystery man. And it reached a certain point, and I really liked, and this is along the lines of what you were talking about, Dre. Christopher Priest, well, when he was writing it was James Housley, but it is Christopher Priest currently. He was, one of the things he did was Wolverine would get in these situations where a fight would break out or some wild stuff would start to happen, and he would just get this grin on his face. And it became like this thing throughout the book where he's just like, he'd have this moment where somebody, like, the door bursts open and a bunch of spies come in. They've got like machine guns, and it's like him, Spider-Man, and maybe one other character. And all of a sudden he gets like this big grin on his face. And there's this moment where you see this fight going on, and it's in black and white, so they're silhouetted, but you see all this blood and gore, and you see Spidey just kind of leaping and webbing, trying not to like kill or be killed, while Wolverine's just leaning into it. And for me, that really kind of, it gave me a deeper look into like the darker characters, because I mean, that was the thing at the time in the 80s. It was like all Wolverine and Punisher, and it's like, and if either of those guys showed up in a comic, even if it was like Power Pack or some other crap book, people would swarm to it and the value would go up. I mean, that was the move back then. And then I'd actually talked to another publisher, and I'd pitched them. There's a character in public domain named Dr. Omega that actually predates Doctor Who, but it's an almost identical premise. And I made a version of Dr. Omega that was, he was black, and I pitched it to one of the companies, and the guy was like, "Oh, this is too much like Doctor Who." I'm like, it actually came before Doctor Who, but okay, I get what you're saying. It's just a matter of, you find something cool that you dig on, and you put your own spin on it. I mean, right now, the current incarnation of Doctor Who is female, and some of the fans were cool with it. Others were turned off by it. I'm like, okay, well, here's a whole nother about face, Like, how do you react if you find out this man who's been traveling through time and space looks like me?
Interesting.
Yeah. So I see Crayley came back with her really cool crafts. And I'm gonna bring her up solo so everyone can see better here.
Oh boy.
Show and tell.
All right. I'll be the center of attention for a minute here. It's all right.
Yay.
Okay. So I make Pokeball dioramas.
Wow.
That is dope.
I wish it
That's
would be
cool.
a little more in focus. They're about 5.5 inches in diameter, and I have these like acrylic stands that they're on. And from start to finish, they take like almost 3 days to make. I work on multiple at a time, or else I would never be able to monetize this because that just takes so long. So it's like I've got glue curing over here, so I'm going to paint over here real quick, and then while that dries, I'm going to go shape this 70% cured hot glue with tweezers, and then But so my first time being a vendor at Indiana Comic Con this year, my first time being a vendor, I took 67 and we sold 30 on Friday.
Wow, that's terrific.
The whole weeks leading up to the show, I was like, did I waste a bunch of money? Did I build up too much inventory? Like, am I gonna just have all this stuff sitting around on shelves mocking me? And my husband, who's not even into Pokemon, was like, people really like your stuff. You've been selling on consignment. You've been selling online. I think you're going to sell out. And we sold 61 out of 67 Pokeballs, and I got 10 custom orders.
Good job. Good job.
That is fantastic.
So we have a compliment for you guys.
Aw, thanks.
James, appreciate that.
James is a podcast host in the UK. They talk about movies and stuff like that. He's kind of new to the convention like comic thing, so he never really knew how that world acts. And so now that you guys have kind of opened the door to him, he's excited.
That's dope. Congrats, James, on opening that podcast game up, man. Look, James, if you ever need someone else to jump on, holla at us.
Yeah, for real.
I love to support you, brother.
I'm right there with you.
Holla at us, man.
We had him on.
I could sit around and talk shop.
Yeah, we had James on for our Halloween Kills review, and pretty much everybody on the panel liked that film. So it was a fun discussion.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
So
yeah, we do have an interesting mix of people. Everybody's just a hair different, I guess. I really like the Pokemon stuff, by the way. Just my quick comment, based on my convention limited knowledge, maybe that would be a huge seller. I could picture customers really digging that.
Yeah, it got to a point where I was like, I don't know how to respond to compliments like this in person from strangers. And I was just, the people would be like, these look so great. And I'm like, thanks.
Well, it's really dope, Crayley. I really like it. And like this talking from somebody, one, all my fingers should be thumbs because I couldn't even put that together anyway. So the fact that you got that kind of craftsmanship and that kind of skill is off the chain. And as a Pokemon fan myself, I'm feeling that. So that's dope. Keep that rolling.
Yeah, my hands actually shake. So it's like I've got so much practice in it where it's like, yeah, I'm holding this glue gun trigger and my hand is doing one of these, but it turned out okay. Somehow I've been doing this for so long that somehow, even though my hand is flipping all over the place, the glue is staying where it's supposed to be. Mostly. That's what the tweezers are for. Afterwards, I spent 2 years learning how to make them before I ever even posted any pictures online, because it was like I had to learn so many different things. Like I had to get better at painting different surfaces. I had to get better at I have 3 pairs of scissors that are each for different materials and stuff. And I had to test all of that. And then trying to create a scene from a game or an environment from one of the episodes, miniaturizing things, scaling things. So it's I have a Dragonite and he's supposed to be 8 feet tall. So I can't cut the same little foam bridge boards that I would if Bulbasaur's crossing a bridge because
right.
So every Pokeball, it's I'm constantly tweaking my templates. So I really appreciate this year has been the year that people are recognizing the craftsmanship. And I'm that makes me feel so great. But also,
that's a lot of skill you got there. That's
Thank you.
tremendous.
You know what would be
I-
really cool? You could
What?
do something similar like that, but instead of like the Pokeballs, do something with like Dragon Ball characters.
I have someone who actually wants me to do a he wants me to do a blue-eyed dragon from
Yu-Gi-Oh.
yes, Yu-Gi-Oh. I was like, why am I forgetting? This is like huge, my whole childhood. Like, yeah, in like a Pokeball style. And I was like, I wonder like what adaptations I need to make. And I also have a bunch of HeroClix figures where I kind of want to make some superhero ones, but I'm not sure if I want to keep the Pokeball motif with like the button in the middle, or if I want to try to find a different reason that it's in a sphere. So I've been like mulling on that for like a year now.
Yeah, like what Brian said in regards, if you did a Dragon Ball Z one, you can make half of it a Dragon Ball, like on
Right.
the bottom, like
right.
I don't know, the 3 or 4 star ball or whatever, and then maybe crack it open like that. I don't know. I'm spitballing. I don't know what I'm talking about, but that thing is pretty good. You know,
This is the cool stuff when you go to a convention that you find great art, you find great comics, jewelry and crafts.
But
and
I
stuff.
think it gave the pandemic gave people time to come up with ways to do this and time to hone a craft. But also it gave people time to be away from something that they might enjoy. And so I think that now maybe the reason they finally hit, a group of people and you sold nearly out the way they did is that people were like, we've been so long without this type of craftsmanship, this type of cool, iconic thing that we loved when we were kids. So, now we're back at a con and we're enjoying that life again. And it kind of just breathes life into our childhood. I think that time away kind of, absence made our hearts grow fonder. So people were like, man, this is cool and I need to have one,
I buy that. I'd buy that. It's like a breath of fresh air, right?
absolutely.
I've kind of caught myself going back and rereading things I used to enjoy, especially like during the pandemic, because everything, there was just this heaviness to everything, and the media was really pushing a lot of fear-based stuff, and it's just like, okay, well, we're on lockdown, cool. I'm just going to order some books from online, go on eBay, get some of the older things, or look through my archives and stuff. I remember like going back and rereading like some of Dwayne McDuffie's run on Deathlock, and because he was honestly he was one of the people that really kind of gave me the inspiration to actually just go full tilt into being a writer. When he was still alive, he used to have it was DwayneMcDuffie.net, and he had a forum, an online forum you could go on to, and you could discuss if you want to talk about Static Shock, if you want to talk about Justice League, or What's New Scooby-Doo, or any of the Ben 10, any of the projects he was working on at the time, or the older comics, and even some of the milestone stuff, you could go in there and talk to him. And he had lists of pitches that he had sent to Marvel back in the day that maybe they got rejected, but then kind of pop up a few years later as some kind of a story. Like they had one, it was an Iron Man Punisher crossover he wrote where Punisher stole a suit of armor and just started rampaging out and added guns to it, and it was called Killing Machine. And then fast forward a few years into the 90s, they came up with War Machine. So that, to me, that helped as far as he would have samples of the pitches that he'd wrote. He had samples of scripts, and if you emailed him, he was really good about getting back in touch with you. And I dug that, because there were maybe a handful of creators I reached out to when I was just in the process of trying to like get into the whole idea of script writing and the format and everything, because I'd done like some screenwriting, but I hadn't done comic book script writing, and there are some similarities. But anyway, he was one of the few that was just like, oh, here's what you need to do. You can check this out, and he'd send me the links. Whereas some of the other creators, they didn't respond, or there was a guy that I actually knew from, we're like from same region really, and he, at one point I had told him, I said I was actually thinking about doing a book independently, and he goes, well, I wish I could help you. And I'm like, you're an artist. Why couldn't you? I don't know if he thought I couldn't afford him or what. I'm like, okay, that's fine, I'll find somebody. Like, there's always somebody out there who's willing to do it, and
Always.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. I got a fun question here for everyone. if money wasn't an option and you had free reign at a convention, what would that one thing that has eluded you be?
As far as like what I would accomplish, or
no, like one item. Like if money wasn't an issue, that one thing that's always eluded you that you wish you had in your collection.
This ought to be good. Yeah, I want to hear this. You want me to go first? I'll go first. I would like to get I'll get one signed by Stan Lee copy of Amazing Fantasy 15.
That's a good one.
Yeah, $2 million book. You said money's no object. I know I'm never going to have one in real life.
Oh, Brian, you got me there, bro.
I'll let you think about that one. What about you, Krayley?
Oh, there are some gallery statues that I have wanted forever. There's like a series of X-Men ones where there's all of this like Sentinel debris from where they've been tearing apart Sentinels, and then like a scene of which X-Men is doing on top of them. And I've never seen one that I didn't like, but I've also never seen one that I could afford. I have the gallery statues of all 3 different colored suits for Phoenix.
Oh, nice.
Like Phoenix, Dark Phoenix, and then the white suit after she gets like re-resurrected. That took me a while to like, and they were in the store's regular price. Like it took me a while to be able to justify buying all of those, except for the Dark Phoenix one. That one was a convention exclusive that I had to buy on eBay. But
what about you, Leonard?
Holy smokes, there's so many things, but I actually wouldn't mind getting like the first wave of the milestone books, that like all of them autographed. Like that'd be cool to have in my collection, as they're coming back full force now. So and I've read some of the new Icon and Rocket stuff, and I really, really dig it. Like Reggie Hudlin's knocking it all the way out of the park.
Nice.
I think I know what you would say, but I want to hear it anyways.
What do you think I'm going to say?
Well, let's hear it. But
Okay, so I have Lois and Clark was my favorite like Superman TV show when I was 15. So when I got the chance to meet Dean Cain at MegaCon, I have a holograph card from the series that has him and Terry Hatcher, and she's wrapped in the cape, and the cape is red and the card is black and white and it's foil. I would have to add Terry Hatcher's signature to that card. Like I'm never going to be able to do that. Like she doesn't do conventions. She doesn't do anything. But if money wasn't an object and I could, stalk the woman and have her just sign the damn card, then that's what I do.
I thought you were going to go the Sam and Dean Winchester route, but
well, if money wasn't an option, I'd be heading to one of those creation cons and I'd be paying VIP and I'd be probably doing bad things. Money wouldn't be an issue. I'd have to take you with me, so I wouldn't do bad things.
That's fair. All right, Brian, I think I got it.
all right.
Get arrested.
I finally got it. I would like the original script to The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, signed by him.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That is what I would want.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. That's one of the. No, I'm not just gonna say comic book, but books that will always be remembered. I mean, that's one of the classics that you can throw in there with like Charlotte's Web and it's that tier. Like
Kind of a different genre type thing.
I
think he's talking about the upper echelon.
Yeah, like books that always gonna remember. People always gonna remember like Dracula and
Brian. You almost killed Leonard, man. You almost killed him.
I was like, okay, I have this affinity for Charlotte's Web, but
Sure.
I think there's.
I mean, The Outsider.
Just put them together. It was weird. I'm
just saying,
weird.
like,
I'm sorry.
There's just like the name recognition, like
Yes.
that, like it's a book
I
that
understand.
everyone's gonna remember, and they're still, they still talk about it.
It's too late, Brian. We're all imagining a Frank Miller like retelling of Charlotte's Web now.
Charlotte's Web.
I think it would be
Frank
really.
Miller?
I think that would be the bee's knees for me because I love seeing the mental vision of creators. Like the finished product is great. Everybody loves the finished product, but I want to see the journey that made it one of the most iconic comic novels of all time. I want to see the scratch notes. You know what I'm saying?
I do, man. I'm like that too. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yes, I want to see how he wrote the direction for every paneling. Like I would frame that, put it in a safe, tell my wife, don't look at it. It is now Mecca. That is Mecca now. You don't touch it. You don't go anywhere near it. I would love to have that and just peer through it once and then put it away forever. That's what I would want to do.
So here's another fun one. If you could go back in time, what era would you guys want to go back to and why?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
But, wait, hold on. Before you say Tim, one caveat. Do I have all the knowledge that I have now?
It's a good one.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
Well, I tell you, when you put it like that, Dre's right. I would take the knowledge now and go back to the Silver Age, right? But I guess one thing that I'd like to say is, I'm not sure I'd go back, and I tell you why. For a guy like me, I might never have got any kind of publishing deal or any kind of. I couldn't have done all my stuff without having the internet. Like I'm fully self-published. I've had one or two that were published at smaller places, but it isn't like, in the 60s or 70s, you had to work for Marvel or Dell or Gold Key. There was no other option. Now you can just make your own books, and man, I'm all for it.
I would like to go back to the 90s, and I would like to go back to the 90s for a couple reasons. One, comics were slumping at the time. For a bunch of reasons. Marvel was going under, blah, 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 blah. I would like to go back to the 90s with everything that I know now. I would create a third, at the time, competing comic book brand.
Nice.
That will compete with DC and Marvel and be able to tell the stories that I have here now. With the clout I could have carried back then when comics were on the downturn, I could have created stories that drove everybody to that third brand and then allow Marvel and DC to compete with me to then elevate their quality of comics at that time period. And then we could have had, at this time period, a holy trinity of the comic industry.
I love how
do you follow that? Like,
I love how he didn't bash Marvel or DC. He said elevate.
Yeah.
And how do you compete with that we should end the show now because I don't think it gets better than that.
Well, I had another fun question, but I want to hear Crayley's answer.
I would never go live in another time period. I think generally, as humans all keep growing, things get better always. And so I wouldn't want to go live in the past anywhere. I would feel like I would be way too frustrated being we haven't even fixed things in the time period I live in now, but at least there are things that we admit are wrong and bad. I really like that I live in a time period where I can open my phone and see a long conversation of people talking about breaking generational cycles of trauma. That's really cool. But to go visit, I feel like I would go visit the late 1800s because there's lost knowledge about how we made things with our hands that I'm really curious about. It's I'm constantly wondering about things. My husband the other day was helping me pin something that I was altering, and he was like, "Oh, your tomato lost its strawberry," talking about my pin cushion. And he's like, "I don't know why it's always a tomato and a strawberry." And I'm like, "Actually, I can tell you. It's because for a while, for some reason, in the late 1800s, I forget which exact decade, it was a status symbol to have a strawberry and a tomato at the same time because their growing seasons only shortly overlapped. And so people would straight up put one on the mantle until they rotted and then try to put another one up there. And since it was also normal to set your pin cushion up on the mantle, eventually, like, after pin cushions got mass produced as little cute things, somebody remembered back to the time that you had a tomato and a strawberry on your mantle and made artificial ones that were also useful, like stuff like that. I feel like that's a period that's not so long ago that archaeologists are trying to find it or anything. We just have forgotten and we don't think about them, and they still affect us today. And I would want to go look at people's houses and be like, oh, that's why we do that.
So Leonard, Jimmy, and Dre, we're all with our notebooks here. What was that again? Oh, yeah.
Right. I would actually, I wouldn't mind going to conventions in the 90s. I think that would have been a lot more fun to scope out because it was a lot less corporate, a lot less, nonsense. And of course, I could have probably bought some cool commission pieces and met some really cool folks at some of these, even like some of these smaller scale shows. Like when I was a kid, I remember seeing in the ads, like they'd have like conventions, they were having them in Indianapolis. I remember Ash Comics that was a staple up until like maybe a couple of years back. And I remember in December, the December shows, they'd always have, I think it was either November or December, but Roger Stern was always a guest because he has family, I think, in the area. So I wouldn't have minded meeting him like sooner. I've met him before a couple times actually, and most of the time when people talk to him, they're always talking about either Hobgoblin or Death of Superman, because those were kind of a couple big points in his career. However, I love this run on Avengers. I would love to have gone back and just got a lot of those old issues. Because that's like when John Buscema was doing the artwork, Tom Palmer was doing inks, and he was writing, and it was fun stuff. You had a hell of a lineup. I mean, at one point, I think they had Hercules and Namor the Submariner on the roster. I'm just
That's right. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Right.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's a good one, Leonard.
Thank you.
What about you?
I don't think I want to go back. I think I kind of take a page out of Crayley's book, I think, because I don't want to go back. I think we are fortunate, and I know that kind of is an oxymoron in this time period, but we're fortunate to live in a time period where people are starting to get recognized for differences, and women are taking stories and running with them and writing their characters like they should have always been written but weren't. And we also have so much more diversity and so much more to choose from. I mean, like, we do live in a time period where we can go on Kickstarter and find the stuff that appeals to us. If we don't, if superheroes don't speak to us, then something else will. And I think that maybe, by being a kid in the 90s, when I was reading Strangers in Paradise and wondering where I fit in the world, it made sense to me to like that comic book. Like, sure. It was very, very much who I was at the time.
And when you met Terry Moore, that was.
And then it was, important to me to meet him, to say, you wrote some women characters that I never assumed a man could write. But also it was about paying attention to what felt natural. And like, I get to be surrounded by people that write and create things of different, ethnic backgrounds and different genders and different, orientations and things that we didn't have in the 90s because they weren't accepted back then even. And I don't care who tells me they weren't. And, we've gone to new places where we're starting to understand how people can just be different and it's okay. We're still not 100% there, but at least we're there. I don't think I'd want to go back to have to think about like that. Like the other stuff that was going on. Like I love the 90s. Like I really do. Like, as a matter of fact, we have a decade day that's coming up, like a throwback day for our HOCO at middle school kind of thing. And I'm like, I got to look up how I can incorporate the 90s into my decade day, because that was the time period I grew up in. But would I want to go back to it? No. Like, I like the fact that I can be a strong bi female and not feel like I need to be conflicted. I'm glad that I have 2 children and a husband, and I can be my own person, and I can make my own money and tell him what's up if I need to.
Fair enough.
That was a good one.
Nicole.
I don't even hold a candle to Dre, though.
No,
Like,
see, I
not
knew
even.
you about to do that too. I knew you about to. I was like, Nicole, you told me you're supposed to close your show after what I said. What you said? You just had a whole rhetoric. I'm sitting there like, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that was good. I like that.
No, but I really liked the idea of having like a competition. Like, you know, that makes you better, and it gives everybody an opportunity to win. And like, you know, I lived probably just like you and not had any stories that really spoke to me, you know, like until Strangers in Paradise. And then I was like, oh, they're just chicks, but they said something, you know, that mattered to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so
that's what matters. That's what matters.
Yeah, it's I think a resonating of a character and of stories. I think that's how we relate to each other as people. Personally, like one of my favorite movies of all time. Everyone's like, it's Batman. Yes, I do love the Dark Knight trilogy, but my favorite movie of all time is 2002's The Count of Monte Cristo. It is my favorite movie of all time.
That's the movie that stars Jesus, Superman, and
Guy Pearce.
Guy Pearce, yeah.
Guy Pearce. And Superman. Superman's in it.
Yeah, young Henry Cavill.
Yeah, young Henry Cavill. And I love that story. Of course, I didn't live in that time in France, but the feeling of being screwed over time and time and time and time again for no reason. No way I grew up, I experienced that so often. I'd be bald, thank God. I'd be bald. but to see and the type of revenge he took was not a revenge of just going around murdering everybody. No. One of my favorite lines in that film is when Jacopo looks at him and says, okay, who we got to kill? I'll go do it myself. And he's like, death is too good for them. They must suffer as I have suffered. And because so many times I've thought that in my mind and felt the way he felt, I resonated with him. Even though the story takes place in France and he's a white dude and all that other stuff, none of that even mattered because it all transcends because of having an emotional connection. So Nicole, good on you.
Yeah, for real.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I want to agree right there because Nicole mentioned something that kind of tied into what we were talking about earlier in that you notice she didn't say Infinity War or, I mean, Strangest in Paradise, right? What a sort of a quiet and sort of an emotional book. Hey, and that's the one where she found the connection, right? So that kind of proves our point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, not to say that I don't love myself a superhero. Yeah. Like, I will always love Captain Marvel. I think probably now more than maybe in the 90s. Like, the woman who's writing her now, I think gives her a voice that's much different than what she had, you know, in previous decades. But, you know, I think we all have something that hits us just in the way that we make that emotional connection to the character and you're just like, I get it. And I guess maybe that's why I get upset when people, you know, bash a fandom or they are uninterested in understanding why you're connected to it. Like, I do love Jensen Ackles. I do very much love Dean Winchester. But my point is that the emotional connection, like understanding that character, that I am the oldest, I must protect my family, I must protect my siblings, I must, you know, you're the martyr. And it's like, I understood that because that was me. And, you know, like, I have that emotional connection. Now I can lighten it with the fact that he is amazing and gorgeous and okay, but like I can understand his character and all that tumultuous, I can't words, you know, all the stuff that happens to him, and then he still dies, and you know, Sam is the one that gets to live. Spoiler, sorry. But you know, like the point is, like, you connect with characters, and there's a reason why you connect with them. If you don't connect, then you know that's why we don't continue to pursue things. Like that's why people don't read anymore, because they don't know how to connect with characters in the book. And
that's the teacher coming out.
Sorry.
See, look, Nicole, it's all good. My mama's been a teacher for decades and decades and decades. I'm with you. I hear you. I'm with you. That's what's up.
I mean, it's important for us to make connections, not just with characters and books, but connections with people. And that's, I think, something the pandemic afforded us too, is that we were able to do stuff like this, that even though we couldn't be together, we reached out a little farther. We met really cool people online that, you know, taught us things.
And before I ask the last question to end the show, I want to go
really
back. You know how they were talking about Samurai Jack and how they do panels without the words. As an educator, you were talking about because Nicole does comics in the classroom.
Oh, right.
And
that's
she,
awesome.
she wants to actually incorporate comics in the curriculum, not just be a choice read. But
it's starting to happen.
You were talking about like facial expressions and stuff, and how like kids these days they can't really understand social or that.
When I dove into the whole like comics in the classroom, like I did all the research on how it does help. And now in our textbooks, actually, there is a graphic novel in at least 2 of the units that are in the textbooks we have. So it was Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book, and I don't know what the other one is. I just saw it the other day, and the second volume that I hadn't looked at yet. So we live in a technology age, and everybody's looking at a screen. So our kids are less and less able to tell the difference between facial expressions. Like, why do we have eyebrows? You know, they're not just something we draw on our faces. Like they really do have a use. They show emotion. And what does this mean? And what's happening between the panels? And so those things are all inference based, and our kids don't really have the ability to make inferences anymore. They also don't have the ability to look at facial expressions and understand. And that's not just kids that have social emotional issues. It's not just kids that are on the that have autism. It's not just that. It's our regular, everyday, average kid that grew up in an average house. Like they don't know the difference. Like my son says to me all the time, I can talk to him just like this. And he says, "Why are you screaming at me?" And I'm like, the heck? You don't even know what screaming is at this point. Like you don't have a clue. So when we teach our kids, like, the book I used when I got to read a comic in my classroom was God Loves, Man Kills. And we talked a lot about what was happening in the panels and why people said the things they did. And then why did he use only panels to describe Kitty Pryde's run-in with that guy and her dance teacher? And why did her dance teacher say what she said? And why did she have the emotional reaction after she left? And what did it mean? And the kids struggled with that because they couldn't use the picture to understand it, because they didn't understand what it meant. They didn't understand what her eyebrows were doing. It didn't understand why there was a picture of her hand next to her side, you know, in a fist. Like those are powerful images, and they didn't understand. And I'm like, I feel like we've lost the ability to use those images in a way that's meaningful to us. And art does that for us. Art transcends what words can't, just like music does. And so when we don't have people creating art that helps kids understand the world we live in, or find a way or a reason to connect with the character, then we have the huge groups of kids that don't read, and huge groups of kids that can't interact in a world where they're making a difference. And I will conclude my TED Talk for the day.
Here.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. Do you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say a comic that's like series that's really, really near and dear to my heart is the Hellboy comics. And Hellboy's not even human. And so one of the ways that they use those wordless panels, it's my husband. Surprise, you logged in and I'm talking about Hellboy. One of the ways that they use those wordless panels in some of Mike Magnolia's work is instead of focusing so much on just a face, is you'll have these establishing shot panels where the character and the color palette tells you something, where it's like the swamp is like gray and black and there's shadow, and then like Hellboy and Liz Sherman are in like a completely different color palette, and all you can see are their backs. But this panel is telling you so much about how like they're just facing this like completely mystical mystery out in front of them that's represented by this like bog out in front of them or whatever, where it's those wordless panels that aren't using faces so much as they're using characters who have a personality relative to the scenery and the art. And I love Mike Magnolia so much. I just bought a volume called The DC Universe by Mike Magnolia.
Oh, yeah.
And it has some of his Krypton stories that he wrote too, where it's not in that like black and red color palette that he uses in Hellboy, but still he uses establishing panels where you have a figure, like something that has a personality in its surrounding in a way that says something about the theme that's coming up. And I love that.
The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, when it was adapted into a graphic novel, like when we read the first chapter with the kids, they had a hard time with the difference between at first between people, ghosts, the other being, the caretaker, and then the newly deceased. So they were like, well, why do they look the way they do? Like, and I said, well, why do they look the way they do? Like, why does she not have feet, but the other ghosts have feet? And why are they colored this way? And why is the cemetery look this color? And why? And the kids were just floored that there was so much they could get out of just the picture and the color and the aesthetics of something that, you know, I hope they took some sort of appreciation from it. But, you know, it's such a short time span in their lives that, you know, they don't see it the way we do. Maybe it's not as meaningful to them unless I don't know. But the color panels, I love that.
Yeah.
That addition. I'll have to use that.
Yeah. So my last question for everyone, since we are in the spooky season, what is your go-to horror / Halloween film? And we'll start with you, Leonard.
Blade.
Blade.
Come on.
Wesley Snipes. What, did I take your answer?
Yes.
We can always say Blade 2 or Blade Trinity.
Let's leave Trinity out of this.
Oh, come on.
That was entertaining, though.
Timothy, what about you?
I'll take my all-time favorite Halloween movie is The Thing. I mean, the Kurt Russell version, where they're stranded in Antarctica and trying to defeat the alien.
I feel like that is the most unsatisfactory ending of any horror movie I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I never knew. Of course, I never understood it the whole time. It's a tell at the end by whose breath is coming out. Kurt Russell is still human. The other guy is not. Meaning, so he actually loses at the end, which I never understood that. I just read this in a website a couple of weeks ago.
Crayley, what about you?
Well, I feel like people think this is really basic, but I have always loved The Nightmare Before Christmas. I watch it all year round. The last day of September, I was like, I know it's not even October yet, but it's close enough. And my husband's downstairs playing video games, and suddenly you've got This Is Halloween playing up in the bedroom while I'm brushing my teeth. Like, that's been my long-term go-to. But as far as something that's actually scary, I just watched the new season of You on Netflix.
Oh boy.
And, like, the first season of that show, I feel like as it goes on, because as a concept, it's hard to keep that like sense of like reality to a show when it goes on. like that. For any listeners or viewers who don't know, You is about a guy who is really justified in his head that he is helping the women that he is stalking, and he eventually ends up killing people. It's all totally justified to him.
Yeah. And that's actually a book that got turned into a series.
Yeah. Well, and he's just, that's the scary part to me, though, is the justifications he's making in his head about how what he's doing is right and helpful, and he deserves this or that out of the people in his life. And I'm like, I know men who have talked to me like this. I hope none of them have ever murdered anybody. Like, that show is terrifying. And I just rewatched it. I'm like, you know what? This is kind of Halloween-y. Like,
so the best way to describe You is like the CW version of Dexter.
No, not even CW. Like, it's not CW.
I mean, if you look at the cast, it is totally
because they're cute.
everybody's super attractive.
But this dude is, I mean, like,
he's from Gossip Girl.
He's hilarious. Like, I listened to, he was a guest on a radio show I listened to on the way home or on the way to work. And he doesn't sound anything like you would think he looks, but like all I can hear is his voiceover from the damn show, and I'm like, oh, it's so creepy. It's just creeped me out. It's really did.
So Dre, Blade, what's option 2?
So option 2, thanks Leonard. Option 2 is gonna be a movie called Secret Window. It was a Johnny Depp film. It was actually a very, very good suspenseful film. I really, really enjoyed that movie. It's really good. If anyone's never seen it, download it, rip it, wherever you get it from. Check that joint out. It's actually really, it's a bit of a mystery too. So it's pretty good film. It's really good.
It's also one of those movies at the end where you like,
yeah.
You want to throw something.
Yeah. I really like that movie.
So what about you?
Okay, so I cannot choose. Like, the kid in me will forever be Hocus Pocus. Like, I could watch Hocus Pocus 150,000 times and never be sick of it. It's kind of like 10 Things I Hate About You every other day of the year. And then of course Scream, because I don't think, like, it was very meta, and I love the fact that it was meta. But also just, oh shit, what was it? Damn it.
We watch Fright Night.
What the hell? Like, I just had it in my head and I was like, that's a good one. And then I don't know what the hell I did. I lost it. So,
but we do watch Fright Night every Halloween.
We do. We watch Fright Night. I think that one should have gotten a little bit more love.
Yeah.
Damn it. We just watched it not too long ago. Got talking and got excited about what everybody else was saying, and then I forgot. Damn.
You can blame me for being such a sparkling personality. I'm so interesting that it's distracting.
I know that.
I agree.
Darn you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
it was there, and then I'm like,
for me, I mean, since I love horror and I love Halloween, but yeah, we do watch Hocus Pocus. But of course, I'm going to be unoriginal and say like Halloween is definitely a go-to film every Halloween. Yeah, Scream.
You're horribly unoriginal.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the the average answer.
Like, this is how bad it is. He bought me a t-shirt too.
Huh.
But yeah, James Jude Courtney.
Yes, James
signed
Jude Courtney
mask.
signed
mask.
And a freaking, altar type thing. So yeah.
Yes, and if you haven't seen Halloween Kills, forget all the hate. The film is actually really good. It does get you thinking, and it gets you kind of pumped for what they're going to do next year.
Now I'm so mad that I can't remember what. It was original too, and it was something I just watched.
And you're going to remember it later.
Like 2:00 in the morning, I'm going to shoot up out of bed and go, yeah, that's what it was.
Yep.
Like, damn it.
Same thing happens to me too.
We've come to the end of the show, so we're going to do our final plugs. So, Dre, final plugs.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Brian, Nicole, for letting me on the stream. This has been a whole lot of fun. I love talking shop. It's a pleasure to meet Leonard and Crayley and Timothy. You all are great. You're awesome. We'll definitely stay in touch. Follow me on all my social media platforms. They are all at TheBrute00. Check out my YouTube channel, Brutal Planet Comics. I also run the comic production company, Brutal Planet Comics. Check that out as well. Check out my comic, Treble, The Rhythm Within. You can get it on spinwiz.com or the Spinwiz app, or just follow me on any of those social media platforms. Holla at me. I can send you a signed copy. It's fun. It's great. If you love action comics, if you love musicals, this is the type of comic for you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate all y'all.
Timothy.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys again too. It was a real pleasure to be on. Thanks, Brian. It's nice to finally actually meet you after this much time. And of course, Dre, I already found you on Facebook and added you. You probably just noticed. So we're gonna, I appreciate the opportunity for a little networking. And I will just say in closing, don't forget that's Kickstarter is going to be launching about 8 hours from now. That's Lost at Sea. Don't miss the thrilling naval adventure in the Water Wars universe. And it even comes with a money-back guarantee. So I'll tell you more about that. If you don't think it's the most beautiful book you have seen this year, I'm refunding the money. Getting into some aggressive marketing. You'll see what I mean when you see it. Yeah.
Tim is the man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I get the sense we're going to be friends, man. So I just want to say thanks so much for having me. I'm also interested in the things that he mentioned, which is the craft. And I'm newly interested in cosplay. So I'm also, thanks for having me on to talk about that a little. Like I say, that's new for me, but you can tell I'm kind of into it. And Leonard, nice to meet you, man. I certainly wish you all the luck with the thing. You have many irons in the fire going on there. So I wish you best of luck with everything.
Thanks.
Yeah, Leonard, final plugs, man.
You can check out some of my writings on amos-cola.com. You can catch the Canary Currency Crime series on Amazon Prime, or you can go on tubi.tv to check it out. AACW Old School Wrestling, they're on Facebook. You can find some of the other things I've done on Sexy Beard Club Press, their Facebook page, and I do believe they're on Twitter. Not as active, but definitely Facebook for sure. Or now they're calling it Meta, which I believe stands for Monitor Everyone Through Algorithms.
Oh,
That's pretty good.
Makes sense.
yeah. Crayley, it's been awesome having you on. Plugs?
Thank you. So if you're interested in any of the stuff that I do as part of my cosplay duo with my Phoenix sister, Kelly, if you look up Phoenix Sisters Cosplay on Facebook, Instagram, or Patreon, those are our most active ones. You can find tons of cosplay photos there. Kelly's more active here than I am, but we have 2 shows through Back of the Cereal Box podcast, and one of them is called Cosplay Cafe. It's every other Wednesday night, and we have cosplayers come on. We sing I'm Too Sexy while we model our costumes. And then if you want to find my Pokeballs anywhere on Facebook or Instagram, it's Pokeballs by Crayley. My name is up on the screen there because I know it's not easy to spell. And I respond to messages through like any of that stuff. And if it's the cosplay stuff, Kelly's just as friendly as I am, maybe more. I should talk to her about that. I think it's my turn to be the friendly one.
Are you guys still doing? Are you guys still doing Drunk Comics?
Not as much. It was actually getting a little difficult to find times that it was responsible for one or both or either of us to drink that often now that we're not working from home exclusively all the time. But on YouTube, we had a series called Drunk Comics that was really funny. If you look us up on YouTube, also Phoenix Sisters Cosplay.
Nice. And of course, you can find me and Nicole and usually Willow Schuyler here every Saturday at 2:15 on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch through HWS Web TV or on Facebook at Reels and Heels. And as we do every week, it's time to ring that bell.